Hey, what's going on, ADPI Nation? I am your host, Kevin Brenner, and you're listening to the Active Duty Passive Income Podcast. And on today's episode, we are going to dive into self-storage with Army veteran Alex Rogers is here joining us. And we're going to talk about his story in the military. We're going to talk about his transition as he left the Army and how he found real estate, but it was kind of an interesting story because it wasn't direct into like, oh, I'm just going to start doing self-storage because I want to, but kind of how he found that path and how you can replicate it too if you're looking at ETSing or retiring. Self-storage is a great asset class, and specifically, we're going to be talking about developing self-storage. So, it's there's two kind of ways in self-storage. If you listen to me interview Paul Moore, who wrote kind of the book on self-storage, what they do is they go and purchase and take over and then improve the business. What Alex is doing and his team, they're either doing ground up development or they're doing conversion, where they'll go and convert, say, like a Kmart that, like, whatever, some sort of like big building, right? That was once a shopping center or something. They convert that to self-storage and force value that way. So it's a little bit of a heavier lift, but it's pretty interesting business model. So Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Kevin, man. I'm excited to be here, man. It's a really, really cool thing you got going on here. So glad to be part of it.
Yeah, awesome, man. So let's jump right into this, man. Let's talk about your military background like we do with every guest on the show. But talk to me about your military background, what you did in the military, where you served, and kind of what kind of sparked your transition, and then we'll talk about that into the real estate and self-storage side.
Yeah, man, for sure. It was one of those things. I was about 19 and I was going to community college, and life honestly was just really boring. It was like community college felt like pretty much like glorified high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just looking for something, some sort of adventure, like most 19-year-olds, I guess, and just kind of got tired of the monotony. Literally saw an ad. I was like the perfect target market for this ad. It was actually a National Guard ad that I saw like on like AOL or something like that. This is back in 05 or 06. And I've always was sort of interested in military, like little kid playing guns and all this stuff. And I went and started recruiter. And at the time I was like, well, I still want to be home. I had a girlfriend that I was, didn't want to go away, and I just wanted to be still home. So I actually joined the National Guard, and it was one of those things. I saw the recruiter, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, oh, I just want to be kind of like a badass, all this and that kind of guy. Yeah, yeah. It's just one of those things. Like totally believe the hype. I want to be coming out of the water in night vision goggles, kind of thing, SEAL Team 6 kind of stuff, which I was the National Guard. It was like, not no disrespect to my people. Listen, no disrespect to my people. But end up, the recruiter's like, hey, well, I have a great offer, $20,000 sign-on bonus and free college. I was like, well, that's a no-brainer. Sign me up kind of thing. So I ended up joining, swore in, went through the MEPS and all that process, and went down to Fort Benning for basic and did the infantry school for 15 weeks and came back home. And it's funny. It was one of those things when I came back and I was like, oh, it's just, 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks in the summer kind of thing. I wasn't even home for like 4 months, and I got warning orders for Iraq. So then I ended up getting activated. Went down to Fort Bliss. Actually ended up, the part of our mission required us to go to North Carolina. I don't know if you know Blackwater, if you're familiar with them. They're not around anymore because I think they shot up an intersection in Fallujah and kind of got banded from.
Yeah, they were like they're like the Wagner group, but the American version of
yeah,
that.
yeah, like total mercenaries.
Not the best look.
Yeah, but like they were cool. I mean, they did good school down there at the time. So ended up getting tasked with the operational security team, just small group operations, which was cool. I tell people like, oh, what did you do overseas? I said, listen, man, we're glorified taxi service pretty much. We're working with NCIS, working with OSI agents, helping them collect intelligence and stuff like that. But we're just a security team. It was a good time. It was a good time. It was in Baghdad doing that whole thing. But it was funny. It's one of those things like you're National Guard, and you know how you get there's sort of this banter between the reserve guys and the active duty guys. Oh, yeah. It was one of those things when we would be over there. They're like, yo, are you guys special forces? Because we wore plain clothes. We were like in Land Cruisers and up armored Suburbans. So we're like, nah, dude, we're National Guard. Like, come on, man. Like, get out there. Like, I'm like, serious,
With
dude. Like,
this new
I'm going.
group called the
Yeah.
Guard.
Yes. Exactly. So I did that for about a year or so. I was over there and came back home and went back to the Guard and finished out my time. Did some time in Germany, a couple 1 month deployments here and there. But all in all, it was in for 6 years total and got out. But I loved it. I loved the infantry. It was cool, good experience. I mean, there's obviously a suckiness to it. Don't love being out in the field. That kind of got old and just kind of just was not feeling it anymore. Kind of grew out of that, especially after the deployment like we had. So.
Yeah, I can definitely believe that it takes a toll on your body and relationships and everything that you got going on. But it's yeah, I mean it's interesting that experience that you bring back with you. So continuing the story, you had 6 years in. Were you going to college when you were back? Like, did you go and get a degree in something or finish out your degree or what was that?
Yeah. So that was a strange experience. So I started college, went to basic, went back to college, got deployed, and then came back to finish college. So when I came back from deployment, I was into my junior year, starting my junior year. But it was weird. It was weird, kind of. It's one thing to be active duty, and some of my buddies were active duty. Like that's what they do all the time. But when you're kind of doing the deployment, you're just doing essentially a year total between training up and then you're doing 10 months in theater. But you come back, you're going back to your normal life and you're going back to college. So it was strange being on campus as a 22, 23-year-old at this point. And I got a little job on college, working at for the rec center as an intramural ref, which I got a funny story. I got fired from that.
You got fired?
Yeah, I got fired 2 weeks in.
You were like safe, and it was out by like 3 feet in softball.
No, it was actually like it was more serious than that, man. It's like I feel like funny saying the story, but I literally my cousin hooked me up with a job because I just needed something to do. I'm back home, trying to kind of adjust back to this civilian world, but you're around college kids all the time, so it's kind of like very intense situation, very serious. So now you're on a college campus, working at this rec center with 18, 19-year-olds who are just wants to party and hook up kind of thing. But I'm like, I'm 23 years old, but I'm like mature. I've seen some things,
You're like the grandfather of campus.
They treated me old. But I was a flag football ref official. And these guys were just like, the game was over. The one captain of the team was like pissed, just really pissed. And he started screaming at the one official. And, I'm a fellow official, so I got his back. I throw a flag for unsportsmanlike conduct. And this guy get
the flags.
Yeah. I felt, I'm like, you know what? Threw the flag out.
You're out of here.
Yeah. And this guy gets in my face. And mind you, I'm only a month back from overseas. And he just mushed my face, and I just lost it, and so whatever. I'm not proud of it. I'm not saying that violence is the answer, but I just couldn't. We got into a fist fight, and then pretty much I think it was the right decision. They had to let me go. It's like there's no write up or anything like that. So that was my flag football career.
But to be fair, that guy sounds like he deserved it. So.
Yeah. But it's kind of like as a representing the school, it was not the right course of action according to them.
Not the right course of action. That's right. Well, at least you didn't have any non-judicial punishment to deal with. So.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so you're coming back and you got your degree, and now what? Because at this point, it doesn't sound like real estate was really in your family or in your mind or anything like that.
No, not at all.
What are you doing?
Really at the time, so I got married during my senior year. So I married my high school sweetheart, turbulent times through the service. But I married my high school sweetheart my senior year on spring break, actually, which is funny. And I was working for a buddy of mine who was starting who had actually an engineering company. It was a startup engineering company where we were designing air ride sensors for hydraulic systems. So very niche kind of thing. We were designing tail lights. So it's all automotive engineering. And I was really hoping that was going to be something, but it kind of just never phased out. It just it just didn't work out,
Yeah.
one of those things, and it just is what it is. But I was still in school, and my hope was actually I wanted to work for Homeland Security.
Hmm.
I wanted to be, uh, immigration and customs enforcement agent.
Hmm.
But at the time, it was just really hard to break into. I was kind of naive in how hard it was actually going to be. I figured like, oh, like I'm a veteran, should be able to get a job,
Yeah,
no
I could get a
problem. Kind
job.
of, yeah,
And
like,
this is like what, 2008,
yeah,
2009. Like this is not the
yeah.
best job market.
No, no, it was
It's
like the
terrible.
worst. Like
It's like
I
the
wasn't
worst.
up on, yeah, like I wasn't up on the news. I didn't know like that we're in a recession or anything. I was just like, yeah, some banks like failed, something about mortgages. Like I had no clue, just like a very naive
Yeah.
kind of guy. But it got to the point my wife's looking at me like, well, this company's not taking off. Like, you got to do something. And I literally went on Indeed and just like put in entry level like business. And that's how I actually found my first professional career, which was acquiring used chemical and pharmaceutical equipment. So like these big, it's like very like another like interesting market that like nobody knows about. Like a lot of times when you think about it, like your Procter and Gamble's, your
Hmm.
GSK's, your Merck's, your Johnson and Johnson's, all these big pharma companies, they have manufacturing lines and they
Sure.
eventually replace them. But there's a whole market of people who will buy those and who do like contract packaging and stuff like that. They'll buy them because there's no lead time. They can just take it and put it plug and play kind of thing because it's already
Into their manufacturing
yeah
plant or
into
whatever
their
they're
manufacturing
manufacturing. So like
exactly.
I'm thinking like conveyor belts and like
Oh
this and like
yeah,
that, like the whole like setup of a manufacturing plant. And
exactly.
they're like, oh, hey, I can use that conveyor belt and I can use that thing and I could jam
Hmm.
it together and oh look, I just created my widget. That's
Exactly,
got
exactly.
it.
So that's what we were doing, and that was like a whole experience itself, learning the pretty much almost how everything's made, everything from plastics to paper to chemicals to pharmaceuticals, food, how all those things are processed. So that was my first like job out of college, and it was a good experience. That's how I got into that. But no, I mean, real estate was not on my radar. It was until, quite frankly, 2.5 years ago. So between that job, I actually left there. A buddy of mine started his dad started an auto auction, which so I
Mhm.
go from doing all this like high end stuff in the pharmaceutical and the kind of that whole realm into working at an auto auction that my buddy was
Mm.
running for his father. So he brought me in as an operations manager. It was less travel. I was starting a family. I was having my first my daughter actually. So I
Mhm.
didn't want to do the whole travel thing because I
Sure,
was
sure.
all
Like you
over
don't
the
want to be the
place.
traveling salesman and have the kids
Ex-
and yeah, totally get it.
exactly. So I was looking for something more stable, and I ended up being at the auto auction for 5 years until COVID happened.
Mhm.
And then, well, yeah, and then COVID happened. All the in New Jersey, at least, all the dealerships shut down, and that's where we were getting all the cars that we were
Oh,
putting out
I
for
see.
auction. So we're not able to get inventory to put an auction. We don't have a business. And what, like most of your listeners know, what turned into what was supposed to be 2 weeks turned into 4 weeks to 6 weeks, and then eventually I'm getting laid off, and now what the heck am I going to do now? And it was
Yeah.
6 months of just kind of like uncertainty, like everybody else. And then really through an introduction, a buddy of mine put out a Facebook post and kind of like on my behalf. He did it in a way that I wouldn't see it, which I guess there was kind of respect me, or maybe he
Yeah,
thought I
yeah,
would be
yeah.
embarrassed or something like that. Put it out there like, hey, I have a buddy of mine, hardworking Army vet. It was like really nice. And
Yeah, yeah.
then that's how Joe actually, who was just transitioning out of residential real estate and starting a self storage development group, which I didn't know anything about at the time. He was literally just starting and was looking for good people, and that's how I got connected. It was literally through a Facebook post, which is
Wow.
crazy.
And that's and it's funny you say that because like you never know how these connections happen. Like we always say, in ADPI, like we talk about the ADPI triad all the time. It's learn, network, take action. Like, and it's an iterative process. You're
Hmm.
constantly learning, constantly network, constantly taking action. But it's a little bit vague. Like the
Yeah,
networking.
yeah.
What does networking really mean? Does it actually mean, yeah, like what does that mean? So you know digging into it, we say, well, it's having a conversation where with a purpose. Well, yeah, that's networking, but where are these conversations happening? It's so
Hmm.
dynamic in the information age. people are talking on LinkedIn, they're talking on Facebook, they're talking here. But ultimately, from this, it was your friend who
Mm-hmm.
went and posted on your behalf, and that's how you got this connection. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. But
Mm-hmm.
all of that is networking, and that really what that is you're leveraging your own network to build a future connection, which
Yeah.
may lead to something. So like when people say, "Oh, I don't know how to network," like here's how you network: just do, just
That's
just go
great.
and just do something. Do something. And so many people, dude, it's so crazy because so many people are so afraid to like, oh, I don't know how I'll sound on the internet. Not just make a
Yeah.
post,
Mm-hmm.
provide some sort of value, make an ask. You never know. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing that everyone has in their back pocket, or most people who listen to this podcast, being military or veteran or in the military community, is that we have been indoctrinated, ingrained with discipline that the
Mm-hmm.
majority of the workforce, and I'm quite serious when I say the
Yeah.
majority of the civilian workforce, knows nothing about.
Mm-mm.
Like, dude, I mean, you know this. You worked in the
Yeah. Yeah.
civilian. Like, we can tell who's a veteran and who's not like that.
It's
Like,
funny how you actually can.
it's like it's crazy, and a lot of civilians, they just have no clue. Like they are literally living day by day.
Yeah.
Just like, but yeah, man, it's funny. It's just funny how that one connection opened up this door for
Mm-hmm.
you, and
Yeah.
that you never would have thought.
Well, it's like the thing about that is that, at the time it was a big deal because I was so, I've changed in the past few years, especially being a startup development company, sort of having the responsibilities that I have. Like, there was a lot of pride, like just like naive pride at the time. That's probably something like I would refuse to go on Instagram or on Facebook and like, hey, or LinkedIn, like, hey, I'm looking for a job opportunity. Like, it was this idea, like, I don't know, I had to do it myself because I'm a man, and this and this.
Sure.
Like, it's really just not asking for help. And I think my buddy recognized that, because actually before that, I was kind of down in the dumps a little bit. Just I have a wife and 3 kids. I'm the sole provider.
Yeah.
Like, unemployment's running out. I've been working since I was 16. I've never been without a job. At this point, I was 35, so I've been working for a while. And I was just very, very concerned that that much time had gone by without me being able to find something, for good reasons. It wasn't like I was the only one, but I was very insecure about it and very frustrated. So he had recognized that about me, and really on my behalf went out his way to do that. So um, it was very kind for him to be able to put that out there and use and leverage his network in order to help me out, really, because it's something I wasn't even willing to do for myself, which was very, to put it clearly, frank, or it was just stupid. Like, just
Mhm.
I let my pride hurt me that way.
Yeah, yeah, and you're not alone. I mean, I kind of did the same thing, and just talking transition and military transition right now. I mean, your glide slope is a little bit different from maybe a lot of the listeners who are on active duty, and they may be on active duty for 20 years and then retire. But
Mm-hmm.
you were in, and then you were back, and then you were deployed, and then you came back. But regardless, you dealt with transitions and transitioning
Yes.
into the civilian workforce. What advice do you have for people who may be looking at a transition? Maybe it's 3 years from now, maybe it's 1 year from now. What
Mm-hmm.
can they expect, and maybe what
Mm-hmm.
would you wish, like, what do you wish you would have known when you were transitioning?
Yeah. Yeah. I think at the time when I got out of the military, I was dead set on what I wanted to do. Like, there was no compromise. I was like, I want to work for the government. I want to be some sort of high speed federal agent that does cool stuff. I just kind of, yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's just like I couldn't help it. I just could not help myself, but just wanted to choose that path. And I was chasing a prestige, some sort of subconsciously, maybe some sort of power, or I felt that I was good at it because of the experience that I had. So it just seems like a very natural. But I feel like, especially now at this point in my life, I realize that there's so many things out there of interest to be able to do. I think one, finding a good group of friends, or surrounding yourself with people that have ambition, to be honest. I mean, like, just one is who you surround yourself with. If you're surrounding yourself with people who are just, quite frankly, just want to party and drink and not talking about ideas, not talking about starting business, not talking about starting doing something to contribute to society in some way, to really do something lasting for themselves, for their family. I think a lot of it, first of all, has to do with the people that you're around. If you're looking around to your right and your left, and people are concerned just about girls and partying, that's probably not the crew that you want to be around. I guess that's sort of number one. Number two is just finding out what your interests are. Like, what things do you like? And I know it sounds so cliche. Like, yeah, if you like history, like, how you're going to monetize history. Like, I get
Sure.
that. But if you're the kind of person that likes to write, or so you're a person that likes to read, or you're like a person that likes to put stuff together, build things, there's so many. You can become a developer, or you can become, work for marketing and write copy. There are companies that are looking for these skills, and these skills are out there. Just, it starts off by, one, surrounding yourself with the right people, and then knowing what you're good at, or what your sort of natural gifts are, and how can you use that to
Yeah,
how
be
can you leverage what you're
strategic.
good at? Yeah,
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 being strategic with your strengths. I mean, that's
yeah.
the, and that's, I think in the military, people get hung up too on like, oh, well, I was trained to be a fill in the blank, and that job doesn't exist on the outside. Like I
Yeah.
was, and so it's like, okay,
It's like
well,
being infantry. Like, what are you gonna
yeah,
do?
yeah,
Like, you should walk around shooting people? No,
yeah, like,
that's true. Yeah,
don't do that.
don't do
But
that.
like,
That's not good.
but no, I mean, it's real because you think like, oh, well, what am I going to do on the outside? And in the military, it's like, well, this is your job, and what if you don't like doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And you want something more, then you kind of feel lost. But regardless, if you can, like you said, surround yourself with people who are ambitious, I love that. Understand and highlight your strengths and your core values. Like, what do you actually care about,
Yeah,
and what are your strengths? And then research. Hey, I have these strengths, and I'm looking, and this is what I care deeply about. Research all the different potential job opportunities out there,
that's a great
and
point.
go down that path. But don't focus on any of the weaknesses that you have. Focus on your strengths first, and I think your transition will be a lot easier. Um, Alex, I want to talk more about self storage because you hooked up with Joe, and for listeners, longtime listeners of the show, they know that Joe was on episode 204, so literally
Mm-hmm.
90 episodes ago. You can
Wow.
go and listen to Joe talk about it. But it sounds like your buddy, he hooked you up with him,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to talking, and Joe was setting up this self storage development group. And if you listen to Joe's episode, I'm remembering it now from the interview so long ago, but he was into single family real estate investing,
Yes.
and he made that transition kind of into commercial, landed in self storage, and started just kind of scaling from there. So let's talk about this. Why self storage?
That's great. That's a really good question. When I came into this, first of all, I knew nothing about commercial real estate. Well, I didn't know anything about real estate at all. Like, I bought a house
Yeah,
using my VA loan. That was like the extent of my real estate experience. The first thing, I kind of have to give a backstory a little bit.
sure,
When
sure.
I first came in, I kind of did this pseudo interview with Joe and Brian, who are the two partners here, and we literally met like at a sports bar. It's a PJ's Willihan's. I don't know if they have them by you, but it was a sports bar, very informal. I showed up like suit, ready to go.
Dress for the
The
job you want,
jet
baby.
exactly. And the one partner Brian showed up like in his gym clothes, and Joe was just kind of informal in jeans, and he was explaining to me the self storage concept. Like, didn't really ask me a lot of questions. I kind of offer stuff as I needed to. He kind of knew enough about my background in the military. He's a military guy. Was a Navy Seabees. So he just kind of gave me the rundown, and got hired a week later. And I came in my first day, and then kind of realizing like, oh, like I'm like, it's them two and me. Like, I'm the first hire here. And the Monday morning we met for like maybe half an hour. Again, kind of, he like said a lot of what he said before, showed me a G drive with some documents, some
Yeah.
reports in there, and left. So now I'm sitting in this building where I
All
am.
right, go get him.
Yeah, it was like that. I'm just like by myself, like literally by myself. So I'm like, okay, well, like, so I just went into the G drive, and the first thing I pulled up was a feasibility report, which essentially breaks down what the self-storage concept is, what makes a self-storage deal a deal, and then a lot of data that I honestly was not even like, I don't know what these numbers are, but was able to be able to figure out eventually. Um, Now, getting back to your question, like I had no idea about anything. So all I knew was self-storage. I didn't really know how to compare to other commercial assets as far as light industrial, flex spaces, big retail boxes and all that. But one thing I will say is that it turns out it's the first thing that I learned is it's less of a headache. You have just the concept of itself is short-term rental. That everything is month to month, and it's not like how it is with residential, where in terms of like if your tenant doesn't pay, like there's this whole eviction process. Self-storage, you're 15 days late or however many days late, guess what? You're cutting the lock, so you can sell it. You can essentially sell all their stuff. In terms of growth, it's been one of the fastest growing, highest performance asset class, like beating pretty much industrial, beating retail. It just performs better in terms of numbers. And I'm not like a numbers guy. Like I don't get into the nitty gritty. Well, according to the stocks and prices and all that. But in terms of just buildability, management, the ease, and the ultimately the net operating income, it's the simplest and the lowest sort of headache. I can say that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you know, providing a little bit more color on self-storage versus other commercial real estate assets like multifamily and things like that. Like to your point, everything is month to month. So you don't have 12-month leases. So for some people, they may say, oh God, everything's month to month. Geez, like that's kind of scary because there's so much turnover, right? But the fact is that people have so much stuff. There's so much stuff and they forget about it because when you're paying, say, if you're in Washington, D.C. and you pay, like I pay, $3,000 a month for rent, you're not going to forget about that payment.
Yeah.
But if you're paying $39 a month or less for a storage unit, for a small storage unit somewhere outside the city, and it's where you have your stuff, man, I mean, you might say, oh God, I really got to clean that out. And then 6 months goes by and you're like, dang it, I still haven't cleaned that thing out. And, some forcing factor, you move or something like that happens, whatever. But during those 6 months, you've been continually, you're hooked up on auto pay. It's all automatic. It's going right to the operator.
Yeah.
Also, the maintenance is way, way lower. I mean, we're talking about a unit with a shed and a door and, maybe it's climate controlled. So, you're inside, you got some climate buildings and you might have a couple employees, but that's pretty much it. So it's really, really cool that way.
Yeah, it's pretty low expense. We figure it's usually between 25 to 35% expense ratio,
which is low for business. Traditional, like a good business runs on about a 55% expense ratio. Like that's a 45% profit margin. So like, yeah, to have 35%, that's like amazing, So that's definitely an attractive feature of self-storage. Another thing that I like about it is the ability to partner with, like large moving truck companies like all and other things, and also the retail side of self-storage, where people like, okay, let's think about this. Why are people storing stuff? Well, they're probably moving from one place or to the other. And what do you need when you move? Well, you need boxes, you need packing tape, you need those little stupid box cutter things, and you need the scissors and the whole thing. Well, are you going to go to Walmart and buy all this stuff ahead of time? Probably not. You're probably going to show up with all your crap and be like, okay, now I got to put this in a thing. Can you sell me some boxes? Yep. So like that aspect of it is kind of cool as well. And and finally, the other thing I super love about self-storage over almost any other asset class is the automation factor. Like I'm such an automation nerd.
Yeah.
And with the software and tech that's out there, like, you can have people like scan into the garage or into like the parking area of the garage, like through a gate remotely by just like scanning their phone, because everything's hooked up through an app on their phone, and it scans a code on their phone and the door opens, and even their garage, their unit will open, and it's super high tech. And that just means you have less overhead and employees. You don't have to have like, the dude from Harry Potter with all the keys, jingling to go and open the gate for you and everything like that. So self-storage on the whole is really, really, really cool. But you guys did something different because you guys got into the development aspect of self-storage. What can you tell me about that versus just like taking over?
Yeah, so that's sort of where I got involved at from the rip. So at the time when I came on board, we had one property that they had bought but hadn't gotten the variance for yet. So it was something that I had to learn the hard way was cities, jurisdictions. There's this thing called zoning. Just because you have a piece of land doesn't mean you can just build whatever you want on there. Like you actually like there's zoning codes, there's use approvals. So you actually have to like go through a process if you want to build something that's technically not allowed on there. And there's a board that has to approve that. They have to vote on it if you want to get that rezone or get a variance. So that's what we were going through with our first project that we had bought, but clearly had not been able to develop yet because we hadn't gotten this variance. So that's what was going on. So in the meantime, they're like, hey, Joe had painted this vision of we want to in 10 years, we want to have 100 sites.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay. So I'm like, okay, well, all right. Well, I'm just going to set out to do that. I'm going to try to buy 10 sites a year. We have one, so that means we have 9 more to try to get in this year. And like I got hired, but I wasn't really given any job title or anything like that. I didn't really have any set responsibilities. I was helping with some marketing stuff. I was helping with getting investors.
Classic like startup kind of vibe.
Yeah,
like
just very startup. Yeah. Exactly. But it became like really evident that, okay, we need to start chasing more properties. So I feel familiar myself with what it takes, what makes a self-storage deal a deal. Like from a development standpoint, why is this piece of land going to work for self-storage? And then, so that's for the product that we build is Class A self-storage. So there's a visibility element to it because everything is focused. It's a retail style. You see these new facilities, they're big, they're beautiful, got the glass fronts on them. That's
fronts. Yep.
Exactly. That's what people want. But those have to be in a certain location. So you kind of want to be on the main and main. You want high traffic count. You want the demographics to be right. You want residential population density. You want median household income to be good. The zoning has to line up.
So let's Alex, let's talk about this. Let's really dig into this because I want to know personally. I'm sure the listeners, who are looking just at self-storage in general, like what are the numbers that you guys, like your criteria, like what are you looking for when you're analyzing a market and you're looking for land in this market to develop self-storage?
Yeah, so a lot of it is market specific. So for example, usually like suburban markets like New Jersey, where I'm at, for example, South Jersey, we usually, and most of the country is this way, so suburbs, we usually look at a 3-mile radius. So you're looking at the target property, 3-mile radius around that. This is the numbers that we generally want to see. We want to see at least 60,000 population in that 3-mile. We want to see at least 60,000 median household income in that. So it's like 60-60, we call it. And we call it 60-60 by 3. So 60-60 in the 3-mile radius. And that's like a good baseline. Obviously, the more people and the higher the incomes in that 3-mile radius, the better.
Sure.
When it starts to get lower than that, you start to get like lower incomes, borderline poverty, 35, 25. It's generally not a good area. People in those areas are not going to pay for self-storage. They're not paying $250 for a climate control.
Exactly, because you're looking at the Class A self-storage is what you're.
Yes. I mean, really, what you're looking for is people who have excess. I mean, that's part of what you're looking for.
And if you're impoverished, you probably don't. Well, it might not be true, but you probably don't have a lot of excess money for stuff. Whereas the people who have 5 and 6 bedroom homes who are maybe trying to downsize,
Yes. So that's kind of like the target market for the two target numbers. Now you can get into, there's this thing where there's supply. So you don't want to build in a market that's oversaturated. If there's too much supply, then, and the rates usually reflect that. So we look at 10 by 10, so like a 10 by 10 self-storage unit. And if we see rates drop below, 10 by 10 climate control, if we see rates drop below $160 for a 10 by 10, that means that most likely that's a pretty low number. So that's evidence that
means that there's a lot of supply on the market.
Exactly.
I see. Okay.
Exactly.
So the 60 by 3, again, that's, you want to see 60,000 people with a average annual income. Is it a median household income, or is it?
We do the median.
Yeah,
from that.
so median household income of 60,000. And guys, all of this, you can get this statistics from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS.gov. You can look up all of this information in a 3-mile radius. And then you also want to make sure that, you kind of use your 10 by 10 unit and $160 a month in rent is kind of your litmus test, if you will. Like,
yes.
if it's below that, there might be too much oversupply here. And if it's above that, that there could be an opportunity. What is the timeline like from the day? And I know this is tough because there's zoning and everything that's involved. In the ideal situation, what is the timeline from the day that you purchase land to the day that you open a brand new facility?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So from the time, so there's certain variables. If we're talking about a piece of land that's approved for self-storage, like
ready to go. Yeah,
ready
you don't
to
need
go.
To go through the whole. Let's assume that. Let's assume that this one is approved, and you don't have to go through the whole variance thing.
Yeah, usually from the time that you purchase it. So while you're under contract, you're doing all your due diligence. You're looking, making sure there's no environmental concerns, getting geotech reports, making sure that the soils are good for construction. You're laying out your site plan to make sure that you can net the square footage that you want and compare that to the construction budget to make sure that it actually pencils. But once you actually purchase it, you go right into the design. So design usually takes about, I would say, 6 to 8 weeks to design a full 100% construction drawings. You're submitting that for permitting, and that probably takes another, let's call it, between comments, another 6 to 8 weeks. So let's call it 4 months at that point to get to permitting. I would say is probably a safe number.
Just for comparison's sake, and the only reason I know this is because my wife designs hotels for a living. That is extremely quick. 4 months to get construction documents. Usually, when you're looking at a hotel, you're looking at least 8 months, double that. Because there's so much more that goes into it, You're designing a hospitality space versus like, hey, we're going to create this many units, and there's not like, furniture in them.
It's like people are going to be staying here.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, you got to make it look pretty.
Not.
Yes.
So, okay. So it takes approximately 4 months, and then it goes to permitting. So then what happens?
So once you get your permitting, ideally you would have already been engaging banks to get the construction loan. So that, we find out the hard way, takes longer than what you think. You think you're going to just go to the bank like, hey, I got this awesome project, here are the numbers, and it's going to be a matter of a couple of weeks. It takes longer than that. It takes, quite frankly, it takes probably another 2 months to get that done. So to get the bank construction loan. So we learn to try to start engaging banks early on to get the construction loan term sheets and start getting them, really compiling a bank package to submit to them. If you can be pretty efficient on that, you can break ground, I would say, in 6 months post closing. And then usually, depending on what you're building, it's probably 12 to 16 months construction schedule to CO. So generally, we tell investors, this is a safe bet, count on 30 months from the time that we have your money till when we get the CO or refinance, I should say. So that's like the development aspect of it. It takes a little longer, but it also what creates the most profit or equity, I should say.
Yeah, but you're literally creating value because you're taking unimproved land and you're improving it. And then at some point when the construction's done, some appraiser is going to come by and say, holy smokes, you got 200 climate controlled self-storage units on here. And this property that you bought for, $2 million is now worth, $12.2 million or something like that. I'm just pulling those numbers.
Yeah, I know. But I can give you rough estimates. We've had probably the average construction cost right now is probably $14 million all in. That's your land cost, construction, like ground up, $14 million. And with the interest rates are a little funny right now, but at post CEO, the valuation at once fully constructed is probably around 20 million.
Okay.
So you're looking at minimum $6 million of profit created when you open the doors.
Yeah.
And that's not even a stabilized value. You haven't even leased it
yeah.
out yet.
Yeah, and that was my next question. Do you
Mm-hmm.
wait until the property is stabilized? Like in multifamily, we
Mm-hmm.
say, we look for 90% occupancy before we'll go and go into a refi. Do you kind of do the
Mm-hmm.
same thing?
Yeah, we do. It's like funny. We haven't done it yet. We just finished our first one. We have 3 other ones currently construction, and then 4 other ones where we're working through the construction loan. So
Mm-hmm.
one finished project. We actually have one in San Antonio that will be done by the end. Well, actually, I think next week actually
Oh,
will be
that's awesome.
done. And then the Kmart, we have a conversion project out in New York that should be done in the summer. So we've been open for 2 months here. It's being managed by CubeSmart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're about between 15-20% occupied right now. Stabilized, I think self-storage is about 83% right now. So we estimate probably take like a year and a half to get there, 24 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're going to get the most value. And that's ideally what you want to do is stabilize it and sell it to one of your major REITs. But it's also, if somebody came with a good enough offer right now, we would sell it because we know that we have other ones lined up. So it's kind of like,
I see. So the exit strategy for you is to go and get this thing occupied. Like you want, as a developer, and this is that kind of classic real estate development, right? You want
yeah,
to get it leased up to prove like, hey, look at all this cash flow that I'm getting. And then you've already refinanced your investors. Like if you took investors, you've already refinanced them out of this first of the deal by simply getting that refinancing out of the construction loan into some, I assume, longer term debt.
yeah,
Yeah. So then you're going to get it leased up, and then you're going to go and say like, hey, Mr. REIT out there who is looking for maybe a 4% return for the pension fund or something like that. Here is a wonderful, brand new, stabilized self-storage asset managed by one of the top, storage managers in the country, CubeSmart, or insert any one of those big ones here, that people know. And this is a great ad for your portfolio. And, and here's the price. And you can go and sell that. That's really, really cool. And the whole tail on that, I mean, if we're talking 30 months in an ideal situation, 30 months, call it 36 months, 3 years, and then maybe another year and a half, 2 years to get it stabilized. It's a 5-year turn on one deal. But if that one deal's lifetime value to you as the developer on that first refi, I mean, you got to pay your investors back, but say it was a 70-30 split on the investor on the syndication that you had, and you made $6 million. Okay, well, $4 million or 4.5 or something is going to the investors, but you walk away with 2 or 1.5. And then
that's on the low end.
That's on the low end. Yeah, that's on the low end. You're walking away with 1.5, and then you're going and getting it stabilized. You own the asset now, right? You're collecting the cash flow while it's getting stabilized, and you're operating. You got a manager and stuff, but you know what I mean. Like, it's under your ownership, and then you go and sell it, and there's going to be a big old profit margin on that too. So the lifetime value of this asset, which may have taken you 6 years to go from a piece of land to a great self-storage unit, right? Or self-storage facility. It may have taken you 6 years, but it could be worth $3 to $5 million to you. So the question is, for listeners out there, if you put the work in and you went and wanted to go down this road, and in 6 years you can over 6 years have one deal net you over $5-6 million, that's not too bad.
Yeah, no, that's not bad at all. And I think like that's on the really long end. I mean, I think realistically from like the moment you purchase to stabilization is probably more between 36 to 40 months. So you're looking probably more like, 3 to 4 years instead.
Sure.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. The cool thing about what we're attempting to do or what we're doing is, yes, it's like right now and on the front end, you're buying land, but you're doing the construction. But at some point, like what's starting to happen right now is like we just finished one. Now we're getting ready to finish San Antonio. Now we're getting ready. Then we're getting finished Allegheny. So they start if you're doing the work and you're buying land consistently and you're working with investors, then next thing you know, there's a whole, I forget the word. I can't think of the word. I don't want to say snowball effect.
No,
Maybe a
it
snowball
kind of
effect.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of is because you have one going. It's kind of like economies of scale, right? Like you got
Yeah.
one going, and because there's such a long tail on these projects, you don't have to just work on one project at a time.
Exactly.
Because like while one's getting built for 18 months or whatever it is, you're like, okay, well, you're not just going to be twiddling your thumbs. Like you're not the one swinging the hammer or anything like that. It's not like you're physically building it. So it's like,
No.
okay, well, let's start looking at other land opportunities and talking with banks and figuring it out. But like that's the name of the game right there. And it's a great wealth builder. Yeah, this is an awesome conversation, man.
Yeah, no, for
Any
sure.
other last minute nuggets on self storage before we take you to the bonus round?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you don't have to start big. Like self storage, there's a lot of people, they see us, and when we have these conversations with people, they're like, "Oh man, like we can't do that. We can't go out there and buy and build $120,000 square foot facility." I'm like, "No, you don't have to do that. You can." There's most self storage in this country are mom and pops. They're small, they're independently owned, and they perform just as well. We were talking about the 25% expense ratio. Like if you're a mom and pop and you have it automated, and it's just you just show up, make sure nothing's on fire, kind of walk around, you're out. So it's more passive than people think. It's more easier to get into. You can have a 20,000 square foot facility with, I'm making this number,
yeah, sure.
50 units or something like that. It doesn't have to be the massive one. I know people that do really well with those in all sort of markets, and markets that are more country, other markets that are more vacation type. People have these beach homes. They just want to store their vacation for Airbnbs or whatever. So you can start small. Don't have to go big. You can really do your own thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if you guys want more information on self storage, you can look up Paul Moore's episode, which I will look up right now. I want to get the episode number on that because he is kind of a big self storage guy. Yeah, episode 273. Paul Moore is a great one. It's called Storing Up Profits with Paul Moore. Great episode to listen to because he digs into even more of the metrics and numbers behind just kind of the general business practices of self storage. And it's really cool. And at the end of the day, Americans aren't getting less stuff.
No.
Amazon is not out there like, oh no, we're gonna stop shipping things to people. Like
That is,
So yeah, it's I would say it's a little bit of a problem, but if you're in the storage business, bring it on, I guess.
yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, our success is a byproduct of consumerism.
100%, 100%. All right, man. We're running out of time. I got to take you in the bonus round. It's the same four questions we ask each and every guest. You ready?
Yes.
All right. Question number 1: what book or software is really crushing it for you lately?
Oh man, I feel so guilty for saying this, man, but it's ChatGPT right now.
Oh, let's go, baby.
This AI stuff. I feel like I'm a marketing guru right now. Like I'm crushing marketing right now. My copy is amazing.
Wow, you're really feeling yourself over there.
Yeah, I know.
Now I know when I get your emails and be like, that's the same copy I use in my emails.
No, you know what it is? It's just like it's new and it's like unbelievable. It's just kind of like one of those things where you're just learning every day what it can do. And some things are just monotonous. If I'm sending out an invitation, this is a stupid example. I get a little more sophisticated with it, but I'm like, hey, we're having this grand opening invitation that I want to write up for investors. I mean, I can just prompt it with some basic information and then just writes up like a really nice invitation. It saved me whatever 25 minutes, or maybe it shouldn't take me that long to write it, but you get my point.
Yeah.
So
saves you time.
Yeah, it saves time. Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. I wouldn't recommend it for like writing a love letter to your wife or something like that. I think there's a South Park episode on that. But
oh no, I gotta watch that.
Yeah, but I mean that's really what's been working for me lately. That's been kind of a game changer.
Yeah. Dude, I agree. I mean, I've been using it more and more just for little things, and it saves total time. The one thing on the personal side, non-business side, that I love using it for is you go and say like, hey, type me up a week-long itinerary for Florence, Italy, Rome, Italy, and Tuscany, and with all the best restaurants and best hotels to stay in, and it goes like,
Are
and
you
it'll go,
serious?
dude, and you can say like it's a romantic getaway for me and my wife. It's and like all the planning and stuff that like, oh, that drives me insane. It will go and look up all this like best places to go and lay it out for you. And even if you don't do those things, at least you know, like, hey, if you have time to kill, and you be like, oh yeah, that thing I have in my Google Note or whatever from ChatGPT is like, yeah, it says we should go to this like hole in the wall restaurant or something like that. It's got great reviews, and you just walk in and like you're there, and
That's incredible.
it's so cool. The use and application is nuts. So if you haven't used it yet, go ahead and fire it up. Question number 2: who's your biggest hero and why?
Oh man, Thomas Sowell. I don't know if you guys know Thomas Sowell. He's like a social theorist, economist, Marxist turn conservative. I don't want to get it. I know it's not a political podcast. I didn't want to get into that. But I kind of grew up. I grew up in the inner city, and I don't want to get into all that. But I kind of, grew up thinking that I was a victim of the system or something like that. Like a lot of people, like a lot of kids who grow up in the inner city that kind of feel powerless and like, woe was me, the world's against me kind of thing. And I'm not saying, some people are wrong or right, but it helped me He helped me tremendously. There's a book that he wrote. It's called Black Rednecks, White Liberals. I know that's kind of like a controversial book topic, but he really kind of laid out really why things are the way they are today in society with the race relations and issues, and sort of I came out of the welfare culture and sort of the policies that went into that really explain sort of a lot of my hardships coming up. So to be able to like understand that and knowing the reasons really helped me counteract that and really push me towards success and surround myself with the right people. So, or just for like a mental state, change the way that I see the world, really.
Yeah, and the lens that you see the world through is so important, to your success and just how you live your day to day. So having that shock to the system and having that turnaround, I mean, I'm glad that you got that, because it's helped you get to where you are today. Question number 3: what do you like to do for fun?
Oh man, listen, I have 3 kids. I have a wife. I'm busy. I don't have a lot of my own time. I get up at 5 a.m. every morning and I go do CrossFit. That's my thing. I'm that guy that if I'm at a party,
You're talking about CrossFit.
I'm talking about CrossFit.
God,
I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to say that. I was waiting for this moment to share about doing CrossFit. I love it. I love it. It's my thing.
Oh God,
I can do muscle ups. I do snatches. I do everything.
Next question: what was the WOD of the day today? No.
Oh gosh.
I'm not talking. We're not talking about it. I used to do that. I did it in St. Louis. I am a CrossFit survivor.
Okay.
Yeah, I did it in St. Louis when I was stationed at Scott Air Force Base, and it was cool. Like I will give CrossFit props. While it is a little bit of a cult, I made friends.
It's 100% a cult.
Yeah. I made a lot of friends, and it was also great because I had to do that like 5 a.m. workout because I had to be at work at 7 in the morning, and it was like a 30-minute commute. So like having that ability to like get there, get like in 12 minutes, be like just dead from a workout. And then, be on my way was like super efficient, super incredible. The thing I couldn't stand was every time all the friends would go out, it was like all they would do was talk about CrossFit. And then finally I was like, dude, what do you do? Like when you're not here and when you're not doing that, like, is there anything else interesting about your life? Luckily, going for you.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I want to talk about it, but I have nobody to share it with. Like my wife doesn't care, my kids don't care, so
well,
it's
this
just
isn't
me.
the place.
No.
Because I also don't care.
It's all good. I'm used to it. It's all good.
We got to get you on some CrossFit podcast or something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you will be proud though if you've been to the Pentagon before. I'm not sure if you have, because it's where I live and that's where I serve as a reservist. Cool. They have converted. I mean, it's got a massive gym in the basement of the Pentagon, the Pentagon Athletic Center, it's called. And it's like a really, really, really huge and awesome, amazing gym. They've converted 2 basketball courts full size. It's now this huge, huge CrossFit area, and they do CrossFit training. Yeah, it's like it. I've been in like some good CrossFit gyms. It's a very good CrossFit gym. I'm not particularly into it, but I see they like, I don't know. I don't know if the training there is free to do the classes. I think you have to pay like a little extra to do those,
Mm-hmm.
classes, but they're leading them all the time in there. So
Man, that's
that
impressive.
it's taken over the military.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all right, Alex, last question for you. Arguably the most important question, even though we already talked about CrossFit, I know.
Yeah.
If you had 3 nuggets to share for someone who might be transitioning out of the military,
Mm-hmm.
or just kind of looking to get into the development game, which is not something we particularly talk about
Mm-hmm.
often on this podcast, what would those nuggets be?
I mean, what's worked out for me is just people you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I had no experience in real estate. I would say you don't have to do it alone. Ask questions, connect with people, reach out to people on social media. You have people on this podcast that are experienced in all these aspects. So I'm always happy to talk to people. Anybody, I would never turn people away. You want to come talk to me? Um, I can connect you with the right people. Kind of give you a rundown about what we do. So you don't feel like you have to do it alone. Reach out to people, ask questions. There's always somebody that you leverage your skills, like we talked about earlier. Um, don't have to overthink it. It's sort of the second thing. A lot of people get sort of paralyzed and just, they think they have to have everything perfectly laid out, perfect plan. Have a plan, but don't overthink it. Just start to kind of, get some sort of momentum. What I was talking about earlier, like I knew nothing about acquiring land. I just started doing it. I made a lot of mistakes. I'll be the first one to tell you. I was putting deals under contract that had wetlands. I didn't know what the heck wetlands was. So it's like, oh, apparently
Oh yeah, you can't do this.
you can't do that. You can't build on wetlands. So, but you learn. And really, the other thing is, don't fear. If you're scared to fail, most likely you will. So
Yeah.
be an optimist.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Yeah, there's so many
Mm-hmm.
people that are out there and they're trying to like navigate this landmine without failing. But you talk to the most successful people, and it's all about failure. It's about failing
Mm-hmm.
forward. It's about learning
Mm-hmm.
from your mistakes, and then carrying on. I'm going to give you a bonus question because I'm genuinely curious. From
Mm-hmm.
your military background, what was one skill that you were able to take from being an infantryman
Mm-hmm.
to the self storage development world?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I would say perseverance. Like when I think about the thing I hated absolutely the most, and I think most infantrymen would tell you this, or any kind of foot soldier, the ruck marches.
I thought you were going to
Carrying
say CrossFit.
no,
No, we love that shit.
yeah, we love it. We love it.
Oh man.
Just putting all this weight on. You got your rucksack, you
Yeah.
got your vest, your Kevlar, you got your rifle. You're just trudging for 10, 12, 20 miles sometimes. And the mental the mental fortitude, or really it's really sucks. You're miserable the entire time you're doing it. But I find myself, when I was first starting to look for sites, I would put in my search parameters and I would get 500 pieces, results. I would have to sit there and look through 500 different pieces of property, copying the address, put it in Google Maps, making sure. That would drive a lot of people crazy. I don't think a lot of people would be willing to sit there at a computer for about 3 days straight, and that's all they're doing is just looking at maps, looking at maps, looking at maps, um, looking at the data points on that. So I think really having that sort of discipline, like, yes, it sucks, but I'm going to sit here and I'm going to just do the task at hand because it's just what needs to be done. So that was one thing I think that helped me, because I've tried to work with other people to get them to do that, and nobody can has the stamina, I guess, to be able to do it for
Well,
those.
yeah, but we all have, as veterans, that's something that we take with us. We have different life experiences, and it's like, man, this sucks. Look, staring at this computer screen for 3 days sucks, but at least I'm not, getting shot at. So
Yes.
it's like,
Yes.
which might not be like the best way to look at life, but it's all about your personal lens. And if other people don't have that, they can be like melting down from the computer, like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. And like, all right, chill. It's not that
That's good.
bad.
That's a great
So,
question.
all right, man. You've shared a lot on this podcast, and me and the other listeners of this podcast, or watchers on YouTube. Guys, we got a YouTube channel now.
Woo.
Woo! We are moving
Yeah.
up in the world. You can watch almost all of our podcasts on YouTube. Yeah, a lot of people are into that, so check it out.
That's great. Yeah.
But people who are watching on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher or Amazon or wherever they're getting their podcasts, you've shared so much information, and it's been awesome to interview you. It's been a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
man. This is fun. This is a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Heck
It's
yeah.
a good
So,
time.
how can folks get in touch with you and Joe and everyone if they're interested in learning more about self storage development?
Yeah. I mean, we have a mastermind. It's called the Storage Syndicate. So if you're interested in learning about self storage, investing, want to start doing your own developments, your own deals, it's storagesyndicate.com. You can check out our own website. It's investwithlegacy.com. That's you can see our portfolio, the projects that we're working on. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's Alex V Rogers. Just that simple, Alex V Rogers. I never actually had to announce that to people. This is the first. So yeah, that's how you can get in touch with us. Definitely hit us up.
Yeah, awesome, man. All right, well, there's probably a lot of CrossFit pictures on that Instagram, but if you can bear with the CrossFit pictures and you can get through to
Yes.
the self-storage stuff, maybe you can get to Alex, slide into his DMs, and ask him questions. I mean, I
Hit
say
me
this,
up.
dude, I say this every single time. Everyone listening to this podcast should be reaching out to the guest. That
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not doing this for my health. Alex, you're not doing this for your health. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we are here having this awesome conversation, but we're making this for the active duty passive income community because it's valuable. This is valuable information. So please reach out to Alex and learn about self storage. That's all I want you to do. Alex, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks so much, man.
All right, we'll see you next time.